Good evening. Glad to be able to talk to all of you. This is our midweek Bible study. I hope you're all doing well and staying safe in kind of the bad weather we've had lately. Tonight we're going to be looking at the book of Psalms and chapter 23. And I want to begin by reading Psalm 23. It says, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever." Man, what a powerful, encouraging, amazing passage. This is probably the most well-known and well-loved passage in the book of Psalms. It's one of the most well-loved and well-known passages in the Bible, and especially within American culture, you can find references to this psalm all over. I mean, just song after song, movie after movie, this idea of the one who leads you through the valley of the shadow of death, you find it everywhere. It's a hugely beautiful and influential psalm. And really, the thing I want to start out talking about tonight is kind of what kind of psalm this is. What is the structure of this psalm? What does it mean? I mean, it sounds beautiful, but what is it saying to us? This psalm is a psalm of trust. Now, that is a genre of the psalms. You know, you got movies that are horror movies and movies that are adventure movies or action movies and movies that are really more all about the storyline and big romantic ideas. This is a psalm of trust. That is its genre. It is a psalm all about a trusting relationship between the person praying it and God. And these psalms usually are given from the perspective of the psalmist when he is passing through a time of crisis, or perhaps about to enter into a new crisis, or in the middle of a crisis. Whether the crisis is coming, or in the middle of it, or in the past, it is the crisis that generates the trust in this psalm. I mean, just look at the way it talks. "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." In other words, that I could have a reason to want, but because God is my shepherd, I don't. No matter what my current crisis or situation might be, all of these are, despite how things might be, this is what things are with me and God. It's very much this idea of no matter what state you're in, you're close to the Lord. It's trust. And it is the crisis that generates the trust here. He knows that God is taking care of him in all of his difficulties, even in the valley of the shadow of death. The protective presence of God overrides all crisis and threats for the psalmist. Psalms of trust show us that the psalmist is running to God and proclaiming trust in him because of a crisis. I think of Mark chapter 9, verses 23 through 24. Father with a son who has an unclean spirit comes to Jesus and his disciples, and he's needing healing. He wants this unclean spirit out of his son. And he talks to Jesus about it, and he says, if you can do anything, have compassion on us and help us, in Mark 9 and verse 22. And Jesus said, if you can, all things are possible for one who believes. And immediately the father of the child cried out and said, I believe, help my unbelief. These psalms teach us that dealing with danger and evil and crisis are part of the life of faith. And through crisis, faith is tempered and trust matures. In this situation with the father, he's coming to Jesus and he needs help. And he says, if you can, if you can help us. And Jesus says, if you believe in me, I can do anything. And he says, I believe, but I need help. Help my unbelief. And Jesus does. You know, the purpose of many of these Psalms of trust is to help us when we struggle to trust, to kind of reach out to God in faith. With Psalm 23, it's a psalm that says, God's the one that's going to be there for me. God's the one that's going to take care of me. And that makes it a really powerful tool for us, because if we can say these words out loud, we can begin to grow in our trust and believe the words as we say them. You know, crisis can come in many different forms, from physical, emotional, financial, social, or even professional. And Psalm 23 doesn't tell us the specific crisis that the psalmist has overcome here. Instead, it is this beautiful response that he gives to God that we can pray in any of our difficulties. They're the perfect words to proclaim our trust in God and strengthen us. And Psalm 23 is not a psalm that we pray because it says what we mean. Instead, we pray this psalm because through saying it out loud, we come to mean what it says and to be what it says. It's the difference between reading the words that someone else wrote. You know, I can read, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." But the real point of this psalm is that you say that out loud to God, that you are able to say, "The Lord is my shepherd, my shepherd. I shall not want." That's the power in it, because as people of God, we know that's true. God is our shepherd. We have no need that he is not supplied, because we have this relationship with him that's greater than anything we could ever hope to have. But it's hard to believe that. And this psalm helps us to kind of put our faith out there and strengthen us and believe what we've heard and read. A huge reason we have the Psalms is to help us to find the words to say out loud and begin to believe what they say. You know, it's very similar to the psalm, oh, how I love Jesus. You know, there is a name I love to hear. I love to sing its word. Singing that out loud helps you to love Jesus even more. I think of that song, "It is well with my soul." You know, I sing that song and I hope that no matter what difficulty might come my way, that it is well with my soul. I want to be the person that this song describes. And Psalm 23 is like that, is this prayer that we can make to God as we try to be like this psalmist, someone that completely plants our trust in God and believes that he is our shepherd, believes that he will not leave us alone, believes that he can get us through the valley of the shadow of death. So as we've been doing on Wednesdays, I want to go over the questions I've sent out to consider as you personally study and read this psalm. We'll start with the first one. It says, what is powerful about the idea that the Lord is my shepherd and not someone else? Now, I read this statement that the Lord is my shepherd, that opening words of this psalm. And I don't always think about this when I think of Psalm 23, but that statement is very specifically proclaiming an exclusive relationship. It's saying, the Lord is my shepherd. You know, anybody else is not. Money is not. That's not the thing leading me, guiding me, in charge of my life. It's not food or desire or any of these things. It's not my political leaders or anybody. It's the Lord. He is my shepherd. Why is that great? Because the Lord makes me to lie down in green pastures. The Lord leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. I like that expression, paths of righteousness for his name's sake. It's essentially saying, he leads me in the right way because he is the right kind of leader. I can trust him because I know who he is. He could never lead me anywhere but the right way. He is righteous and good. He's the perfect leader. And I read these first few verses of Psalm 23, and I hope that I believe this. That my God does help me to lie down and relax, even in a scary or difficult place. That he restores my soul in my struggles and my crises. That he has led me in paths of righteousness. The right things I've done, the good things I've done, that those were because of his example and his teaching. Question number 2. What does the valley of the shadow of death mean to you? What do you imagine when you read that phrase? What are some valleys God's led you through in your life? I think reading this psalm, we read that expression and it's really specific, but it's also really not. I read the valley of the shadow of death and I immediately get a mental image, but it's probably different than anybody else's mental image, and I know what he's trying to say. God can lead me through the scariest thing possible. For me, I think about a few years ago, I almost died. I ran into a pole and had to be med-flighted, and everybody I knew thought I might have died. And it was a long mess. But I remember waking up after I ran into this pole. I had a really bad concussion. I passed out. I woke up. I couldn't see. And I had to be knocked back out with some medication because I started fighting the paramedics. But as I was losing consciousness that second time, I just remember thinking, I might never wake up. I hope I wake up. Am I okay? And I just thought, yeah, I'm okay. Okay, if I don't wake up, I'm okay. Because the Lord is with me. I'm not alone. He was with me in the valley of the shadow of death, and I was fortunate it was just the shadow of death. I made it out, and I was pretty okay in the end. I didn't even manage to crack my skull like they thought I did. I apparently have a very hard head. But when I read this passage, I'm reminded of all the valleys of life God's taken me through. And I hope you'll read Psalm 23 and think about your own valleys and difficulties. I'm sure right now seems like a bit of a valley and a difficulty. And draw faith from the fact that God is leading us through it. We're not alone in this. Question number 3. How does God help you to rest? How does he restore your soul? Look at the qualities this psalm says that the good shepherd has, and consider how God has done these things in your life. I love this image. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. I think about just this perfect idyllic scene of a beautiful green pasture with a little stream right by it, and just laying down in it and taking a nap on top of a blanket or a picnic blanket or something. It sounds like the most perfect idea in the world, without all the allergies maybe. And I think I read this and I remember the way God helps me to deal with fear and anxiety. God has this ability to calm us because we know he's not going to leave us. We know that he's with us. He's promised us. Jesus, before he left this earth, said, I'll be with you till the end of the age. To me, that means when I lie down and I'm scared, I don't know what's going to come tomorrow or in the future, I can remember that, kind of relax and say, okay, well, I don't know what's going to happen, but I do know who's with me. I do know that the presence of God's not going to abandon me or his people or his church. That's pretty wonderful. Finally, read Psalm 23 out loud, slowly. How does reading this text make you feel? That's question number 4. Consider ways you could use the Psalms to affect your feelings and to help you in your struggles. N.T. Wright wrote a great book a few years ago called The Case for the Psalms. And in that book, his whole point was to say, I think we don't use the Psalms enough. The Psalms, as a book, they are there for us to pray them out loud, like Psalm 23, and change the way we think by changing what we say. Psalm 23, you read that out loud, and how do you feel? You feel pretty good. You feel calm. And hopefully it's easier for you to believe what it says when you say it. Hopefully it strengthens you. I think spending some time with this psalm right now in our current state of the world, but with all the psalms, just looking through them and reading them and praying them can make a massive difference on your faith and your relationship with God. I hope these questions are helpful to you. I hope you're doing well, and I love all of you. I miss getting to see everybody, and pray that all this mess will end whenever the Lord's ready for it to. God bless all of you, and hope you all stay safe.